morning. It's Beth from Ruth Stitchery and ruthstitchery.com, and I want to start by thanking everybody again. We kind of put out a call to help us reach this 10,000 followers on our Facebook page by the end of the year, and I just can't tell you how thankful I am. Everybody who's been sharing our videos and sharing our Facebook page, getting the word out about our store. We are almost at, I think we're just under 9,000 followers. We're not even halfway through the year, and I am beyond appreciative for everybody who's been watching our videos and everybody who's been sharing them and just sharing information about our store. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We have realized there are so many tools, quilting tools out there for you, and it can get overwhelming with the number of trim down tools, rulers, just so many things that can make your life so much easier as a quilter. But trying to figure out which one works for me, do I need to have them all? We decided that periodically we want to do a couple little demos on just some of the tools that are out there. So we did a wing clipper, which is a flying geese trim down tool from Studio 180 demo video not too long ago. And I decided let's talk about Bloc Loc. If you have never heard of the Bloc Loc tools, they were invented right here in Colorado. Paul and Jana Thomas are a couple. They are from Loveland, and they basically a little bit on accident came up with this tool to trim down half square triangles. So I went on their website and I kind of found the story as to how they got started, and basically it was her mom was a quilter. She wanted to trim down her half square triangles. She had a regular quilting ruler and she put some tape across on that diagonal line, but then she couldn't see through it. And so she was complaining about how she couldn't see through it. So Paul went out. He is an engineer or a mechanic of some sort, and he sort of rigged a ridge, so to speak, in the back of her ruler so that no more tape. There was a little ridge there for her to follow. And that led to them realizing that that little ridge locked into the seam. And that is kind of how it started for them. And they came up with this Bloc Loc half square triangle ruler that I'm going to show you, which it was a game changer for me. They started this in 2010. It was right about the time I moved to Colorado. And within that year, I was at like a Sew Expo up in Denver, and Jana and Paul had a booth there, and of course all these crowds were around it, and I had to figure out what it was, and I went up and I found that she was demoing these rulers. Game changer. I have used them ever since, and they have created more and more of these tools. So I want to start by showing you the half square triangle Bloc Loc trim down tool, which I use all the time. It comes in several different sizes. They are, a few of them are right here. When I first saw it, she was selling them as a kit of the 6.5, 4.5, and 2.5. So I bought the kit because financially it made more sense than buying them individually at the time. I have since gotten the 1.5 inch one. But I usually tell people that if you are only want to get one of them, the 6.5 inch is kind of the perfect size because you can trim everything from a 6.5 down to the 1/2 inch, really, the 1.5. So it would do any of those sizes. So this is a great tool if you're just going to get one. To get the 6.5 one. So let me kind of show you this ruler. It has all the markings on the 1/2 inch on the inside. It has your regular quilt markings, the 1/8 of an inch all the way around. But on the back, this is what makes this tool so great. There is a little ridge that is cut into the back of this ruler, And that little ridge is what you lock into your seam. And so we have all had those half square triangles or flying geese or anything that we're kind of sewing on an angle that maybe get a little bit wonky. Well, what they found with this little ridge is that you basically can kind of lock this ruler into your seam and straighten your block at the same time. That's why I said game changer. Okay, so I always like to make my half square triangles a little bit bigger and trim them down. So I have brought with me today some half square triangles that I sewed. I used a charm pack, so these were 5-inch squares that I used, knowing that I was going to trim these down to 4.5 so that they were a 4-inch finished half square triangle. So I'm going to start by showing you, I have the 4.5-inch Bloc Loc ruler, and so of course it's easiest if you have the exact size that you're trimming down to, and this is, I have a rotating mat, which also makes it a little bit easier. So I can't tell you how long I used these before I actually realized that the Bloc Loc logo always gets laid down on the side that you have pressed away from. So typically we press toward the darker colored fabric. So my seam is pressing toward this dark navy blue. And so I know that this Bloc Loc label or their logo is gonna go on the lighter side. So when I lay this down, you can see that that ridge is hitting the seam. So I'm just slightly larger here, and so I'm going to set this down. I'm going to get it locked into place, and I'm going to go ahead and trim 2 sides. So I'm going to trim the right side and the top. Oop, I didn't press hard enough. And now, if I didn't have a rotating mat, I could flip this around. But since I have a rotating mat, I'm just going to flip this. I don't need to move the ruler, and I'm going to go ahead and trim the other 2 sides. Now I didn't trim very much. You can see it's like 1/8 of an inch, but I now have a perfect half square triangle, 4.5 inches. It will finish at 4 inches. So that is if you have the exact size you're trimming down to. If you just have the one size, the 6.5, I wanted to show you that again, this is the same for all of their tools. The logo goes on the side that you have pressed away from. And so I'm gonna lay this down. I'm gonna first get it locked into that seam, and then you can see that that little ridge moves up and down. You can slide it up and down without lifting the ruler up. So I know I'm going to do 4.5 inches, so I want to make sure that the 4.5 over here is on my half square triangle. And then I can do the same thing. So I see that my 4.5 is there. My ridge is locked into my seam, and I can go ahead and trim these 2 sides. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to flip this, but obviously I have to move something. So instead of lifting my ruler up, I'm just going to slide down the seam until the 2 edges I just trimmed are right at the 4.5 mark, and then I can go ahead and trim the other 2 sides. So very easy to use a larger ruler to trim down a smaller half square triangle. So that is the half square triangle. I use this ruler all the time and ended up buying the 1.5 because I had some pattern that had a ton of 1.5 inch half square triangles, and so that was when I got this one. So this is the half square triangle rulers. Okay, so the next one I want to show you is the flying geese. So I showed you the wing clipper from Studio 180, and it's a trim down tool. Bloc Loc also has flying geese trim down tools. The difference being that their flying geese tools are size specific. So there is a flying geese tool for every size, standard size of flying geese. So I would get one of the Bloc Loc flying geese if I had a pattern that was having me trim the same size flying geese down and I had multiples of them. This is, of course, a lot easier because it's the exact size. I don't have to move anything around to be able to trim this down. So this one is the 3x6 finished size of flying geese. So I have a slightly oversized flying geese that needs to be trimmed. And so again, on the back, there are these grooves that are etched into the ruler. And those are what will lock right into the seams that I've got here. And as I sort of push toward those seams, it straightens any of them out in case I got a little bit off. So here I can go ahead again and trim two sides. And then I can flip this mat around. I don't have to move the tool at all. I can go ahead and just trim the top and the other side, and then I've got a perfectly trimmed 3.5 by 6.5 flying geese, and that way I can easily move on to the next one. So if I'm doing a lot of one size flying geese, the flying geese Bloc Loc tool is fantastic. Okay, after the half square triangle, I think the next rulers that she got into her trim tools were the half rectangle triangles, I think is what, no, half triangle rectangles, I believe is what it is. And she's made a large and a small set. This is the larger set, so you can see that it's A and B because of the angle that you've got there. And she's also done several books that you can use these tools, make a bunch of different blocks of them. But this is a method of trimming down these shapes here that when you put them together, let me do this, nope, wrong way. When you put them together, you have kind of that triangle in the middle with these outer pieces. So there's lots of tools out there that help you with this. I find that hers are so great because you do make them larger and then you trim them down. So we're going to look at trimming down one of these with her ruler. And I'm going to, oh, wrong one. Nope, this is the correct one. No, it's not. Okay, this one. I'm going to place this on. So again, ridge is on the back side. It's going to lock into that seam. And you can see I can move this up and down as needed. If I had gotten a little bit wonky, when I lock this in, I can sort of press to straighten it out. And now that I am kind of locked in place here, I can go ahead and trim two sides and then flip my rotary mat around. I don't have to move my ruler. If I was trimming something smaller, of course, I could just slide this ruler down, but I have made these just to be a 4.5 by 8.5 inch. So I've got this trimmed. What is so great about these is the fact that you don't have to lift them up and reposition to trim the other sides. A lot of times we have to lift the tool up, we have to look at the marks that are on the ruler and try to place it again, and sometimes it can get us a little bit messed up. So that is something that is wonderful about their tools. The final one I'm going to show you, just because I had it in my stash that I actually bought with a pattern and kit that I had, and that is what they call a triangle in a square. And so I want to show you how it kind of comes packaged. So here is the actual Bloc Loc trim tool. So the ridges are on the back, and you can see this is a 2x2 finished square. So they always mark their packaging with the finished size, so that if you look at your pattern, you know what size it needs to finish at. That is how they package them. It's always the finished size. So just know these tools include the 1/4 inch seam allowance. So even though this says 2x2, once you trim, this will be a 2.5 inch square. So this is the triangle and square. It comes with the actual trim down tool, but then it also comes with the templates that you need to cut out your pieces. And so these 3 things come in the package. So it's the trim tool plus the templates to cut. And it will come, if it doesn't come with it, on their website you can get a chart, which I'll show you in just a second, and it tells you what size to cut your fabric at to use these templates. So I went ahead and sewed 2 of these together. So this one is not trimmed yet, and this one has been trimmed. So this is using these. So I went ahead and I used my templates, I cut my pieces, and I sewed them together. Because this has the little cut corners here, it makes it really easy to line this up. So if these were pieces of fabric, they line up with that straight edge, and then that little corner that is cut off, it lines right up, and you can sew your pieces. So those are the templates. So here is one that is untrimmed. So just like the flying geese, the ridges are going to lock right into my seam allowance, and if need be, if I got a little bit wonky, as I sort of press that into the seam, it will straighten all of those seams out, and then I can trim. On this one, there's not a huge trim on the sides, so I'm going to trim, and then I'm going to trim across the bottom, and then again, I don't have to lift my tool up. I can just turn my mat and trim the side and trim across the top. It's going to leave me that 1/4 inch here so that my seam doesn't get, so that my point doesn't get chopped off. And so you can see if I had a ton of these to make, it makes it so much easier to have this one size tool and know that you're going to have a little perfect piece every time. So that is the triangle in a square. There are a lot more Bloc Loc tools that are out there, and sadly Jana passed away last year, but her husband Paul is keeping the company going and creating more and more tools that we can use. So I just love it. Again, like I said, it was a game changer for me. And what I have found in doing a little bit more research is that on their website, if you just go to blocloc.com, you can print out all of these wonderful PDF instructions for all of their tools. So this is the one that comes with the half square triangle. It comes with a little chart to tell you if this is your finished size, here's what size you should cut your squares, and then your trim down size. So that's with the half square triangle. Your flying geese comes with instructions packaged with a chart for your stitch and flip method and trim down, but you can also go on their site and print out the no waste method and the chart to tell you how big to cut those pieces. So another resource that's there for you. This is the one I found for the triangle in a square. It first shows you what comes in your package. It shows you how to use your fabric to cut it. And then it gives you charts. This is so fantastic. It tells you how many you can get out of a full strip, how many you can get if you've cut a strip off of a fat quarter, how many you can get by just certain shapes. So I thought this little chart was fantastic. And then it shows you instructions on actually how to sew it together. So they certainly don't leave you wondering, once you have this tool, how do I use it? So these are the Bloc Loc tools. Of course, half square triangles, it's my favorite tool to trim down so that I have a perfect half square triangle every time. So if you have more questions about them, you can certainly give us a call. We have these in our store. We have them on our website. Thank you so much for watching. And again, we appreciate you sharing our videos and hope that you will continue to do so, and we'll get those followers up to 10,000 like our goal is. Thank you so much.